So the two experiments that I'm going to talk about today are drops in a coin and Dunlop balls. My primary threes engaged enthusiastically with these experiments. In October 2020, I carried out this experiment with my class. The children had to first guess how many drops they thought the coin would hold before carrying out the experiment, which developed their prediction skills. Next, the children recorded how many drops the coin would actually hold before the solution went everywhere. The children were given a blank sheet of paper to record the results in their own way. This showed a vast range of abilities, and many could verbally explain the differences but were not able to yet clearly record their findings. Finally, the children compared the results to see which solution held the most drops. We initially carried out this experiment using water, and after doing this we discussed and selected a range of other solutions that we could compare with the water. We also discussed how in science we carry out an experiment 3 times to help make sure our results are as accurate as possible. So although this lesson was not focused on fair testing, this skill was introduced. As you can see, the children recorded the results in many different ways. Some were showing more structure and a logical layout, whilst others were a bit more random. Due to lockdowns, the class had not much input on how to use tables, so after they participated in the experiment, I modelled how to record information using a table. In their groups, they then transferred their information to their tables. We used this table, and this provided more structure for the children. The aim was for the children to then remember this skill and begin to apply it when carrying out their next experiment. Overall, the children's observation skills improved, and they enjoyed working with and discussing their observations with their partners. The active nature of the experiment also meant that there was a high level of engagement. Our next experiment we carried out in November 2020 was Dunlop balls. This experiment involves seeing how far a ball travelled when it went down a ramp. As a class, we trialled a ramp with a clear runoff as well as bouncing it off a wall after letting it go down the ramp. The children were then able to select which method they wanted to choose for carrying out their experiment. They then carried out the experiment and recorded their results. There was a lot of oral discussion from this activity, and through questioning I was able to see how children's understanding developed throughout the entire task. As you can see from the photographs of the results, the children were much more structured in how they presented them. This shows how they were beginning to apply prior learning to this task, and they showed much more independence. Children were given the option to measure using standard or non-standard units, and this allowed for the applications of their mathematical skills. You can see obvious attempts to record the units, which showed an understanding of their importance. A big learning point, however, for the children was that they had to just let go of the ball rather than pushing it down the ramp. A few were tempted to push it, and it had to be explained that pushing it will change how far the ball travels. This therefore required some teacher modelling, and after that the children were more confident and independent. They enjoyed learning from their mistakes as they carried out the experiment and were able to make changes to help improve their results. And the children understood that they needed to test each ball type 3 times, and it was interesting to see some patterns beginning to emerge. Some children still required more support with the recording of their results, and with a little teacher input they successfully measured and recorded their results. You can see this in the image that I have written which ball was used, and the children have recorded the numbers. However, they didn't quite understand the importance of recording the units, so this became their next step. All in all, the TAPS assessments have been a useful and beneficial teaching tool. Children have engaged positively with the assessments. Their skills in carrying out an experiment clearly improved between the 2 different experiments. They are beginning to record the results more confidently and have made it easier for others to read and interpret. They are beginning to predict and draw their own conclusions without specific direction from an adult, and they have begun to adapt an experiment to make it fairer. These experiments have promoted active learning, the children enjoyed them, and more importantly, children have developed their scientific skills without actually realising they are doing it. Thank you very much for listening.